Hello, YouTube. I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. My client today is Brian. Brian is a hairdresser who has been working near me for, I don't know, 12 to 15 years. It's been a long time. I've worked next to this man through multiple salons. He does great work. You can check out his work on Instagram at Brian James Hair. So today we're going to give Brian a haircut that is relatively loosely based on Justin Theroux. I didn't go in thinking of him as the inspiration, but later while editing this video, I thought it was a good fit. But we're going to add some tapers. And mind you, typically when we think of tapers, we think of a very clean, tidy finish around the haircut. But because we want to keep with the kind of messy, lived-in vibe, we're going to do the tapers a little bit different today. I'm not going to try to make them as pristine as possible, but I am going to try to make them tasteful. And hopefully by the end of the video, you'll kind of understand what I mean by that. It's not going to be your typical like barbershop taper. So to begin with, I'm going to come through the top and just do some, I think they call this punch cutting or inverse point cutting. I need to look it up and be sure of that definition if I'm going to continue doing these videos. But what I'm doing is just pulling the hair up and cutting it square to the ground. Essentially think Bart Simpson. It's points and peaks and valleys, but coming to a nice square flat shape at the perimeter of the, all the little points are coming to roughly the same square shape. And you can see as I'm working through this that I'm constantly checking the other hairs around the head to make sure the length is right across the head so I can keep that square shape. You can see I'm holding my fingers parallel to the floor as I cut. This is super important. You don't want any of this stuff to be lopsided or over-directed. You just want to pick it straight up and cut it square to the floor. Now, whoever cut his hair before me left the top quite disconnected from the sides, which is cool, but it's not what I'm going for. I am going to keep a little bit of it disconnected though, just because, hey, it already is, like I'll just roll with it. So I took the area near the recessions and clipped it out of my way. And what I'm going to do here is take diagonal forward sections because his hair grows diagonally forward there. And I'm going to just kind of get rid of his pre-existing undercut and kind of blend it in here. Now, the reason I want my sections to go in the same direction that the hair lays is I get a lot more control over where I'm placing the weight as I do that. And it's a lot easier to kind of visualize as I'm cutting, like what I'm going to do with the hair when I drop it. Now, as I come through to the back of the haircut, I realized that the pre-existing shape was already pretty good. I'm barely cutting anything off there. And so I think at this point, I just skipped that one because the back looks good. I'll just leave it, I'll leave good enough alone. Now, coming around to the left side of his head, his hair grows really steeply forward. And so these sections are going to go very steeply forward. I think when I stopped just kind of cookie cutter vertical sectioning every single head and I started shifting my sections to follow the direction of the growth, I definitely found that the hair styled a lot more easily and it was a lot more easy to kind of control how the hair was going to look in the end. And so if you haven't been doing that, I strongly recommend trying it. So as I'm blow drying his hair here, I'm not going to use a brush because I don't want to use a ton of tension to get like a kind of perfect uniform style. I want to leave a lot of that kind of messiness in there. You'll see what I'm doing here as I'm removing moisture with high heat and high power is I'm moving the hair a lot. And then once the moisture is gone, but the hair's kind of fluffy, I'm going to use high heat and low power and I'm going to continue to move the hair a lot. You see, the thing is, one of the sort of secrets to these very lived-in looking hairstyles is you have to move the hair. It's like you have to put an entire day's worth of touching your hair and moving your hair into the 5-minute blow dry, and it really does make a difference in the way that the hair moves. It won't look as forced or put together. If you just move the hair a lot, it will look lived in. So as I pick up my liner, I'm going to do everything I need to do with it before I put it back down. And what I mean is, I'm going to line up the front edge of the hairline. I'm going to begin to put in my taper line there, which you can see here is not a usual taper line. Typically, when you do a taper, you're taking out a lot of material at the temple and kind of fading diagonally up and back from the hairline. But I kind of did this taper backward from the back of the sideburn to the front so that I could leave a nice strong line around the front of the haircut. And I kind of think of this almost like doing a bit of a burst fade minus the fade part. Now in the back here, the sort of bald area that I put into the taper is curved as well. And the reason I like to do that is that it's going to leave more material near the edges of the haircut where I'm putting those lines, and it's going to give me a bolder, darker line. Part of the reason that I want to do everything I need to do with the trimmer before I put the trimmer down is it's kind of a lot faster to work through a haircut this way. If I'm setting down tools and picking up tools, like if I pick up the tool to do the bald line and then I set it down and pick up another tool to start fading, and then eventually I pick up this tool again to do the lineup, it's going to take a lot longer than if I just do it all at once when I'm holding the same tool. So now I'm using my Andis Master. I'm not like super particular about clipper brands. I try a lot of different ones. I'm not like bent on like, oh, the anise is the best, but I'm starting with this with the blade all the way open and creating a guide roughly 3/4 of an inch outside of the shape that I created with the trimmer. And then I'm closing the clipper to begin to blend out the line between the two areas. So here in the back, you're going to see that the middle of the taper is going to come up quite high and then the edges are going to tip down again. And on Brian, like, I have to admit, it kinda looks in this video like I gave him, like, some serious white walls, but if you saw this guy's hairline in person, you'd go, "Oh, that's just where his hairline is." Like, he just happens to have kind of a high hairline around the ears and behind the neck there. So same as what I was doing with the trimmer, I want to do everything I need to do with this clipper without a guard before I set it down and do anything else or grab a guard. One thing you'll notice here, if you look at the angle of the lines that I'm blending out, both on the temple and on the nape, directly from the side of the head, they kind of echo the same shape together. And in my little brain, I think that gives us some sense of continuity there. And as I'm grabbing my one guard here and starting with it open to begin stretching out this taper further up into the haircut, I'm really trying to avoid hitting that front hairline because I want to leave darkness there. I want to leave weight. And something that I'm doing a little different with this one guard that I didn't do when I was working with no guard is as I get to the top of my sort of guideline here, I'm not necessarily just echoing the shape of the tapers. I'm kind of starting to alter the shape to fit the parietal ridge a little bit more. In the back here where the hair is a little bit more dense, I'm blending the area between no guard open and one guard open by using a zero guard, starting with it open and then closing it ever so gradually until I blend out the lines. I find in the front of the hair where it's less dense, I can usually get away with blending out the one open by just closing the one. But in the back where the hair is more dense, I typically go to the zero guard to do that. So now I'm back on the one guard open and I'm doing the same thing I was doing on the right side. I'm echoing the shape of the tapers there and avoiding hitting the temple because I want to leave some darkness there. And behind his ear here, there's a bit of a dark spot that I didn't catch right away. It's driving me crazy watching this video, but dude, I swear to you, cutting hair in this lighting is not easy. Like in the video, it's like, oh yeah, we can kind of see everything, but in person, it's like it's kind of blinding bright. So now I'm just gonna kind of like connect his beard into his haircut. Now I am absolutely not like a beard guy. Do not come to me for beard advice. This is not a beard tutorial. Like I just kind of do beards. And when I say kind of do beards, like what you see in this video is the extent of what I do. So now I'm going to take my one open and blend it into those diagonal forward sections that I had made earlier by just using scissor over comb. Now, this is a comb that's new to me, and I literally this day I started using it for the first time, and it's a little bit thicker than what I'm used to. And so that's I blame that on this line that you're going to see here for the next couple minutes in this haircut. I did end up realizing later, like under better light, I was like, wait, I left a line there. And I almost scrapped this video over that line, but just take my word for it. Like I wouldn't leave that line on a paying client. This is the new comb, unusual lighting. Like there's a line there that I didn't quite handle all the way. But if we can ignore that and look at the rest of the beauty of this haircut, I'd say it's very flattering for Brian. It's like his hair kind of just wants to do this regardless of how you cut it. I think it's very suitable for him. And I think, a suitable haircut is more important than a technically perfect haircut. In fact, I think technically perfect is kind of boring. You do need some technical, like, structure there. And what you can see me doing here is I'm doing kind of a flat top technique here with the texturizing scissor to just make sure that I do have enough structure in the top there. I don't want it to be so chaotic and random that it's not square enough. And this is me recognizing that line that I was just talking about and giving it one more go. Again, after we turned the camera off, I gave it a final go and fixed it. But oops. So now that I'm 99% sure that I'm 99% done, I'm going to take my product, which in this case is 80H dry, and I'm going to put a little bit on the root of the hair. And just like when I was blow drying, I want to move the hair a lot. Like I want to wiggle it and scrunch it and push it. What I find by applying product more to the root and less on the ends is that it looks a little bit more natural because as you'd imagine, your scalp gets oily before the ends of your hair do. And so if you kind of put a wax or a pomade or any kind of hair product on the root more than the ends, it looks like you just kind of didn't wash your hair for a few days, which is, kind of the vibe of this Justin Theroux cut. Is a little bit like Grizzly lived in. So there we have our finished product. It's not exactly like Justin, but we don't have Justin in the chair. I would say we captured the vibe pretty well and managed to put in some fun little tapers in there at the same time. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're into this sort of thing. I will be back next week with another.